Barron Trump was enjoying a quiet walk through the park when a frantic cry broke the calm. "Mom, where's my mommy?" He turned quickly to see a little girl, no older than 5, standing alone, her eyes wide with panic. She looked around, lost and terrified, her small hands clutching at her clothes. Without hesitation, Barron walked toward her, his expression calm but purposeful. "Hey, are you okay?" Barron asked gently, kneeling down to her level. The girl's eyes locked onto his, a mixture of fear and hope in her gaze. "I can't find my mom," she whispered, her voice trembling. In that moment, Barron knew he couldn't walk away. He stood up, holding out his hand. "Let's find her together," he said, his tone soft yet firm. And just like that, he began a search that would bring more than just a mother and daughter together. It would capture the hearts of many. Barron knelt down beside the little girl, his heart tightening as he looked into her wide, frightened eyes. "Hey, are you okay? Where's your mom?" he asked softly, his voice steady, though he could feel the tension in the air. The girl's lip quivered, and her small voice cracked as she replied, "I can't find my mom anywhere." Her words hung in the air, and Barron could feel the weight of her fear. She looked like a lost bird, her tiny hands clutching her dress as though trying to hold herself together. Her face, pale with panic, only made her seem smaller, more fragile. Barron's own heart pounded, but he knew he had to remain calm. For her. For the both of them. "It's okay," Barron said gently, his hand instinctively resting on her shoulder in a comforting gesture. "We'll find her together." He smiled warmly, trying to reassure her, though his mind raced. He stood up and glanced around, scanning the crowd of people leisurely walking through the park, oblivious to the small crisis unfolding in their midst. Barron's focus sharpened, the calmness he projected belying the urgency of the situation. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. This wasn't just about finding her mother. It was about offering this frightened little girl some hope, something to hold on to. Barron turned back to the girl, who was now clutching his sleeve, her tiny fingers digging into the fabric like a lifeline. "Don't worry," Barron reassured her softly, his voice low and warm. "We'll find her. I'm not going anywhere." Barron glanced at the nearest group of people, some families on picnic blankets, others walking dogs. He took a slow step forward, his voice steady but firm as he approached the nearest woman. "Excuse me," Barron said, his demeanor polite but urgent. "Have you seen a little girl's mother around here? She's wearing a pink sweater and has brown hair. The girl's name is Emma." The woman looked at him for a moment, puzzled. "No, I haven't seen anyone like that," she replied. Barron nodded and gave her a quick smile, then continued his search, not stopping, not wasting any time. He couldn't afford to. Each second felt like an eternity. The little girl, Emma, tugged at his sleeve again, her face growing more anxious with each passing minute. Her breath quickened, and Barron could feel her small body trembling beside him. "I want my mommy," Emma whispered, her voice small and full of fear. Barron bent down again, meeting her eyes with a soft but unwavering gaze. "She's going to be here soon, Emma. I promise," Barron said, his voice soft but full of determination. "We just have to keep looking. I'm right here with you." With each step they took, Barron's resolve grew stronger, his composure never wavering. He couldn't show his own worry. He had to be her rock, even if it was breaking his heart to see her so scared. Emma's grip on his sleeve tightened again as they approached another family. Barron spoke quickly, gently, but with a rising urgency, asking if they had seen Emma's mom. The family exchanged concerned glances, but no one had seen anyone matching her description. Time seemed to stretch. Barron's mind raced, and Emma's anxiety seemed to grow with every unanswered question, every empty glance from people who had no idea what was happening. But Barron stayed steady. He spoke softly, reassured her with small, comforting words, doing everything he could to keep the fear from overtaking her. He could feel her tiny hand in his, her fingers tightening, her grip stronger than a child's should be. And through it all, Barron never broke. He was her constant, her steady presence in a sea of uncertainty. Together they continued the search, and though the tension was thick and the minutes seemed endless, Barron knew that soon enough they would find her mom. As Barron continued to walk beside Emma, the frantic energy that had once filled her small body began to calm. Her breathing slowed, and her tight grip on his sleeve softened just a little. It was as if the simple act of him staying by her side had given her something to hold on to, something that wasn't so full of fear. The park, once a vast sea of unfamiliar faces, started to feel smaller. The people they approached, asking about Emma's mother, began to notice the quiet connection between them. They no longer saw just a man helping a lost child. They saw a moment of humanity unfolding before them, something so raw and real that, for a brief instant, the entire park seemed to share in it. "What's your favorite color, Emma?" Barron asked, his voice gentle but steady. He looked down at her, his eyes filled with nothing but kindness. "Mine's blue like the sky on a clear day." Emma glanced up at him, her eyes still wide but no longer filled with panic. She hesitated for a moment before answering. "Pink," her voice barely a whisper. "I like pink. And purple, too." Barron smiled softly. "I like pink, too," he said, his tone warm. "It's a nice color. My mom's favorite color is purple. She says it reminds her of flowers." Emma's lips curled into a shy smile, and for the first time since Barron had met her, the fear seemed to loosen its grip on her heart, if only for a moment. The shift was subtle, but it was there, a sign that, despite everything, Emma was starting to trust him. The quiet reassurance in Barron's words had done what none of the frantic searching had. It had begun to calm her spirit. She wasn't alone anymore. As they walked, Barron asked her about her favorite animals, her favorite games. He talked to her in a way that made her feel like a person, not just a frightened child lost in a sea of strangers. "Do you like dogs, Emma?" he asked. "I think dogs are great. They're always so happy to see you, no matter what kind of day you're having." Emma's smile grew a little more, though it was still laced with the sadness of her fear. "I like dogs," she said softly, her voice a bit steadier. "And I like cats, too. They're funny." Barron nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. Emma was beginning to open up, her earlier distress gradually replaced with the simple joy of a conversation between two people who, despite their differences, had found common ground. "Can you tell me what your mom looks like, Emma?" Barron asked gently. "Maybe we'll find her if we know what she's wearing." Emma's face brightened a little, her small hands wiping at her eyes. "She has a red scarf," she said, her voice a little stronger now. "She always wears it when we go to the park." Barron's heart skipped a beat. The small detail felt like a sign, something that could finally lead them to the end of the search. He nodded thoughtfully, taking in the information. "A red scarf," he repeated, his tone hopeful. "That's something we can look for." He scanned the crowd again, his eyes sharper now as he began asking people about a woman wearing a red scarf. Emma clutched Barron's sleeve again, this time with a little more hope in her eyes. She had begun to believe that they would find her mother. Barron had become more than just someone helping her. He was her protector, her safe haven in that moment of uncertainty. As they continued their search, Barron's steady presence gave Emma the courage to believe that she wasn't as lost as she had first thought. She had someone who cared, someone who was going to make sure she got home safely. In that moment, Barron wasn't just a stranger helping a little girl. He was her anchor, her connection to the world that had seemed so large and terrifying just moments before. And together, they were going to find her mom. The air felt heavier now, the weight of every passing second making Barron's heart beat faster. He scanned the park once more, the sea of faces blending together, the distant laughter and chatter muffling the growing sense of urgency in his chest. Emma's small hand was still wrapped tightly around his sleeve, but the tremor in her grip was fading, replaced by a quiet hope. They had been searching for what felt like hours, but the crowd had been indifferent to their need. Barron knew they couldn't give up, not when Emma's face still held a mixture of fear and longing. Just as he began to think that the search might be in vain, something caught his eye. A woman, walking briskly through the park, caught his attention. She was alone, but there was something familiar about the way she moved, something about the scarf draped around her neck, the vibrant red against the sea of dull coats and jackets. It was a flash of color, but it was enough. Barron's heart skipped a beat. "Emma," he whispered, gently squeezing her hand. "Look." Emma's head snapped around, her eyes darting toward the woman, and for a split second, Barron could see her face transform. The anxious tightness of her features melted away, replaced by a burst of recognition, and her small voice trembled with disbelief. "That's her. That's my mommy," Emma cried, her voice full of relief, a light of hope finally breaking through the fear that had clouded her eyes. Barron's chest tightened as he looked at her, watching as Emma pulled on his sleeve with newfound energy. Without a second thought, Barron started walking faster, his feet pounding against the pavement. Emma's little hand tugged at his, urging him forward, and he could feel her energy surge as they rushed toward the woman in the distance. The sound of Emma calling out, her voice breaking through the air with joy, grew louder with every step. "Mommy, Mommy!" she called, her voice shaking with emotion. The woman, still a distance away, seemed to hear the cries. She stopped, her gaze scanning the crowd, and when her eyes landed on Emma, everything changed. The strain on her face, the panic that had mirrored Emma's just moments before, softened into something Barron could only describe as pure relief. Her eyes welled with tears as she recognized her daughter, and she broke into a run, her arms outstretched, her face full of uncontainable joy. Barron stepped back as the mother and daughter collided in an emotional embrace. The mother crouched down, lifting Emma into her arms, holding her tightly as the little girl buried her face in her shoulder, her tears soaking the fabric of her mother's coat. Barron's eyes blurred for a moment as he watched the reunion, the weight of the moment crashing over him. It wasn't just a lost child being found. It was the restoration of a bond, the return of safety and love in the most innocent, yet most powerful way. The mother whispered soothing words to Emma, her hands caressing the back of her daughter's head, as if to reassure her that everything was going to be okay. Emma's sobs softened into quiet sniffles, her small body finally relaxing in her mother's arms, comforted by the embrace she had longed for. Barron stood there a few feet away, his heart swelling with relief as he watched them, a witness to this profound moment of tenderness and connection. For a brief moment, Barron allowed himself to feel the weight of the relief in his chest. The fear that had gripped both Emma and the mother was now replaced with peace, and he knew in that quiet moment that he had made a difference. His part in this story was simple, yet it meant everything to the people involved. He smiled softly, stepping back, content to watch the reunion unfold. As Barron stood back, watching the tender reunion between Emma and her mother, the weight of the moment settled into his chest. The small, fragile girl was no longer lost in the sea of people. She was back where she belonged, in the arms of the woman who loved her. Barron felt a quiet satisfaction, not in any grand gesture, but in knowing he had been a part of restoring a broken moment, a brief separation between mother and child. It wasn't about heroism. It was simply about being present when it mattered most. The mother, still holding Emma close, wiped the tears from her eyes, her face full of overwhelming relief. Her hands trembled as she gently pulled Emma back from her embrace, looking at her daughter with eyes filled with the deepest love. Emma, still sniffling, clung to her mother, her small fingers curling around the woman's coat. "You're safe now," the mother whispered, pressing a kiss to Emma's forehead. Emma's tears slowed, but the fear that had once consumed her was still visible in the way she held on tightly. With a shaky breath, the mother turned toward Barron, her gaze filled with gratitude that words could hardly contain. "Thank you," she said, her voice catching in her throat. "You don't know what this means. I was so scared, so helpless, and you found her. You helped her when no one else did. Thank you so much." Barron's heart swelled with emotion at the raw sincerity in her words. He hadn't done anything extraordinary, just followed his instincts, walked beside a scared little girl, and promised her she wasn't alone. And yet, to this mother, it had meant everything. Barron offered her a soft, humble smile, his eyes warm. "I'm just glad we found her," he said quietly, his voice steady, though his heart raced with the emotions of the moment. His words were simple, but in them he conveyed the truth that he didn't need praise. The joy of helping, of making a difference, was enough for him. But the mother wasn't done. Still holding Emma in her arms, she fumbled for her phone in her bag, her eyes never leaving Barron's face. "I need to capture this," she said, her voice shaky but determined. "You have to know how much this means to us." She snapped a quick photo of Barron, capturing the image of him standing there, quiet and composed, beside her daughter. Two strangers connected in a moment of pure, unexpected kindness. Barron felt the weight of the photo more than he expected. He hadn't done this for recognition. He hadn't even thought about it. But the mother insisted, a look of gratitude still etched on her face as she spoke. "I have to share this story. I want people to know that there are still good people in the world, people like you, who care about others, even if they don't know them." Barron smiled again, the small gesture acknowledging her gratitude without words. Little did he know, that photo would soon reach thousands. What began as a simple act of kindness, helping a little girl find her mom, would soon become a viral moment, touching hearts far beyond the park that afternoon. A few days later, the image of Barron kneeling beside Emma with a calm smile on his face began circulating on social media. The post quickly went viral, the caption praising the unassuming young man who had gone out of his way to help a lost child. The image struck a chord with people everywhere. His quiet compassion, the genuine care in his eyes, resonated with people longing for kindness in a divided world. The photo spread rapidly, shared by thousands who were moved by the simplicity of the moment. The outpouring of support and appreciation was overwhelming. Comments flooded in, with people from all corners of the world sharing their own stories of kindness and expressing their admiration for Barron's empathy. What had been a fleeting private moment between a little girl and a stranger had turned into a global reminder of the power of compassion, reminding everyone that sometimes it's the smallest acts of kindness that have the greatest impact. The photo, now circulating on social media, became a symbol of kindness in a world often overshadowed by negativity. The image of Barron kneeling beside Emma, his calm smile and gentle presence a stark contrast to the chaos of the moment, resonated with thousands. The caption, a simple thank you from Emma's mother, quickly garnered attention. "A moment of kindness in the midst of chaos," one person wrote, sharing the story with a hope that it would inspire others. The comments flooded in. "The world could use more moments like this. This is the kind of heroism we need right now," and "Thank you for reminding us that good people still exist." Emma, in her own words, posted a message that touched hearts worldwide. "Thank you for finding my mommy. You're a real hero," she wrote, the innocence of her gratitude leaving many in tears. The sincerity in her words, so pure and simple, spoke volumes to people everywhere. In a world full of noise, her message was a quiet reminder of the goodness still present in the world. News outlets picked up the story within hours, and soon Barron's act of compassion became a trending topic. Headlines praised him for his empathy, his willingness to help a child in need without hesitation, and his unassuming nature. People from all walks of life shared how Barron's actions had reminded them of the power of kindness in a world that often seemed divided. His story became a beacon of hope, showing that a simple act could transcend political divides, social barriers, and the everyday struggles people faced. Barron, however, remained unaffected by the media attention. He continued his life quietly, stepping back into the background where he preferred to be. He wasn't looking for recognition. The viral story, the praise from strangers, none of it seemed to matter to him. What mattered was that he had made a difference in someone's life, and that was enough. But the ripple effect of his kindness didn't stop with the headlines. People who had seen the post or read the story began to share their own experiences of kindness. In communities both online and offline, conversations started to emerge. Conversations about empathy, understanding, and the importance of reaching out when others need help. People spoke about the impact of Barron's simple act, how it had inspired them to look out for each other more, to help strangers without expecting anything in return, and to embrace the humanity in those around them. It wasn't just about the photo anymore. It was about the message it carried, a reminder that no matter the differences we may have, kindness could always unite us. Barron's story, though quiet, left a lasting impression on those who heard it. For some, it was a reminder of the compassion they had within themselves, something they had forgotten or buried under the weight of everyday life. For others, it was a reassurance that in a world often filled with uncertainty, moments like this, moments of pure, unselfish kindness, still existed. In the end, Barron may not have been looking for any recognition, but the world had found something in him. A reminder that even in the most unexpected of places, In the most fleeting of moments, compassion could change lives. And that is the kind of story that stays with people long after the news cycle has moved on. A few days after the photo went viral, Barron received a message from Emma's mother. Her words were simple but heartfelt. "I can never thank you enough for what you did for my daughter. You gave her something more than just help. You gave her peace, and for that, I'll always be grateful." She went on to invite him to visit them and have coffee, to meet Emma properly, to sit together and talk, as a small token of appreciation for his quiet kindness. Barron, moved by her sincerity, agreed to the meeting. They chose a small cafe, cozy and tucked away from the usual hustle, a place where they could sit without the noise of the world around them. When Barron arrived, Emma's mother greeted him warmly, her smile still carrying the soft emotion of that unforgettable moment in the park. And then Emma, the little girl who had once been lost and frightened, bounced up to him with the same innocence she had shown that day, but now with an entirely new light in her eyes, one filled with trust and gratitude. "Thank you for finding my mommy," Emma said shyly, her small hand reaching out to him in a gesture of thanks. Her words were simple, yet they carried the weight of everything that had transpired. In that brief moment, Barron could feel the depth of the connection between them, how something so small, a simple act of kindness, had changed the course of her day, of her life. It wasn't just about finding her mother. It was about giving her back something that she hadn't even realized she'd lost: her sense of safety. They sat down, and the conversation flowed easily, as though they had known each other for much longer than a few days. Emma's mother spoke of how the experience had shaken her, how it had reminded her of the importance of kindness in the world. She mentioned how Barron's presence had offered Emma comfort, how his calmness had reassured them both when everything felt uncertain. "I just kept thinking, how lucky we are to have found someone like you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Barron smiled, feeling the weight of the words settle deep within him. He wasn't looking for praise, nor did he need recognition, but there was something humbling in knowing that his small, unassuming act had created this ripple. It wasn't just about him. It was about the connection they had shared, the bridge built between strangers who, for a fleeting moment, became family. As they chatted, Barron could see how the story had touched not just Emma's family, but the community around them. The viral photo, the posts, the comments, it wasn't just a reminder of what had happened that day in the park. It had sparked something much deeper. Conversations had started online about kindness, empathy, and the power of small actions to create change. People shared their own stories of help, of moments where simple gestures had made all the difference, and the ripples continued to spread, even reaching Barron. It reminded him, in a world that often felt disconnected, that a single act of kindness could bring people together in the most profound way. By the time they said goodbye, Barron felt like he had gained something too, a reminder that even in a world full of noise, a quiet, genuine act of kindness could cut through it all and leave a lasting imprint. As he left the cafe, Emma's mother waved at him, and Emma gave him a small, shy wave, her smile now full of hope. Her heart no longer burdened by fear. Barron knew that in that brief moment, they had shared something that would stay with them all forever, something far greater than just a simple thank you. It was a connection, a spark of humanity that would continue to echo, reminding everyone of the profound impact we can have on one another. Months passed since Barron's quiet act of kindness in the park, and the ripple effect of that single moment continued to grow, spreading through every corner of the community. What had started as a simple gesture, helping a lost little girl find her mother, had become much more than anyone could have anticipated. The story had reached far beyond the park, touching lives in ways that words couldn't fully capture. People everywhere shared the story of Barron and Emma, their bond sparking conversations about empathy, kindness, and the power of human connection. One day, Barron received a message that would change the course of his quiet life. A non-profit organization, dedicated to spreading kindness and helping children in need, reached out to him. They had heard about his story, about how he had shown up for someone when no one else did, and they wanted to honor him. They invited him to be a part of a new campaign focused on promoting empathy, to help inspire others to act with compassion, even in the smallest of ways. At first, Barron hesitated. He wasn't interested in fame or accolades. The moment he had shared with Emma and her mother had never been about recognition. It had been about doing what felt right. Yet, as he read their message, something shifted inside him. The idea of using his experience to encourage others to act with kindness, to create a ripple effect of good in a world that sometimes felt overwhelming, stirred something deep in his heart. He agreed to be a part of the campaign, not because he wanted to be a hero, but because he wanted others to see that kindness, empathy, and human connection were things everyone could offer, no matter their circumstances. The campaign launched quietly, in ways that felt genuine and real, with Barron sharing his story of that afternoon in the park. He spoke about the simple truth that had driven him, about how sometimes all it takes to make a difference is to show up for someone else, to be present, to listen, and to help when no one else does. His words were measured, humble, but they carried weight. Barron wasn't a politician, a celebrity, or anyone with grand titles. He was simply someone who cared, and through his own actions he became a voice that resonated with thousands. The impact was profound. People began to share their own stories of small acts of kindness, of times they had stepped in to help someone when the world seemed too busy or indifferent to notice. The campaign didn't focus on large gestures or grand declarations. It focused on the everyday, on the moments that could easily be overlooked but, in reality, had the power to change someone's life. Barron's story, and the kindness he had shown Emma that day, became a symbol of what it truly meant to be a hero in the most humble, genuine sense of the word. As time passed, Barron became a quiet ambassador for kindness and empathy, not because of the recognition, but because he believed in the message he was sharing. He was no longer just a young man who had helped a lost child in a park. He had become a living testament to the idea that heroism doesn't always come with fame or a grand stage. It comes from the willingness to see others as human, to recognize their needs, and to step up when it matters most. And in that quiet way, Barron had shown the world that true heroism is not about being remembered by millions. It's about making a difference in someone's life when they need it the most. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to reflect on the small acts of kindness that can make a big difference in someone's life. Have you ever experienced a moment where a simple gesture changed your day? Share your thoughts with us in the comments. We'd love to hear your stories. Don't forget to like this video, share it with a friend who could use some inspiration, and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories. Let's continue to spread kindness and make the world a better place, one small act at a time.